Welcome to the brutal truth of modern dating, a sexual marketplace more akin to a ravenous, feeding frenzy than anything resembling romance. Prepare yourself, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter your illusions. Women, driven by the primal, unstoppable engine of hypergamy, are relentlessly seeking the top tier of men. It's not a gentle courtship, it's a battlefield, a veritable Hunger Games. And frankly, most men are pathetically, embarrassingly unprepared. They arrive at a gunfight armed with a butter knife, completely oblivious to the carnage that awaits. We're talking about a devastating reality, a cruel twist of evolutionary fate often whispered about as the 80-20 rule. 80% of men are pathetically vying for the attention of, at best, the bottom 20% of women. Meanwhile, the top 20% of men, they're not just getting attention, they're monopolizing it, feasting on a buffet of female desire, while the vast majority scramble for the scraps of affection. Think of a pack of wolves tearing into a fresh kill. The alphas devour the prime cuts, leaving the weaker wolves to fight over the bones. This isn't about choice, gentlemen. This is about hypergamy. Don't fool yourself into thinking it's some social construct, some learned behavior that can be unlearned. No. This is a ruthless biological imperative, a deeply ingrained evolutionary drive, a roaring, unstoppable current that forces women, yes, forces them to constantly, tirelessly seek the best genes, the most secure resources, and the highest social status. It's not a preference, it's a pre-programmed mandate, etched into their very DNA. They're not being cruel, they're being efficient. It's a cold, hard calculation, a survival mechanism that has ensured the continuation of our species. And you, my friend, are either equipped to play this game, or you're destined to become another casualty. Listen to me. We need to dissect the very core of female attraction. And it's not about chocolates and flowers, understand. It's about raw, primal biology, hypergamy. It's not a choice, not a learned behavior. It's inescapable genetic programming. It is a biological imperative to secure the strongest seed. For millennia, women's survival and the survival of their offspring depended entirely on the male's ability to provide and protect. Are you grasping this? Their lives depended on it. This isn't some feminist conspiracy theory. This is cold, hard evolutionary fact. Women, throughout history, quite literally, could not afford to choose a mate who couldn't put food on the table, defend against threats, or offer a reasonable chance of survival. This reliance created a deeply ingrained preference, a primal wiring, if you will, for men who exhibited dominance, resourcefulness, and high social status. These weren't just attractive traits, they were life or death requirements. This is not a social construct hammered into women's heads by patriarchy. No, this is etched into their DNA, a biological imperative as strong as the drive to breathe or eat. This is undeniable fact, backed by mountains of evolutionary evidence. Think of the lioness choosing the strongest lion to father her cubs. Does she choose the nice lion who brings her flowers metaphorically, of course? Absolutely not. She chooses the one who can dominate the pride, secure the best hunting grounds, and protect her from rivals. Human females, while obviously more complex, operate on the same fundamental principle. Now, let's translate this to the modern jungle. Women are still hardwired to seek out men who exude confidence, ambition, and financial success. These are the modern-day equivalents of hunting prowess and territorial dominance. These signal a man's ability to acquire and control resources. These are the alpha male characteristics that trigger the deepest, most primal instincts within a woman. It is the CEO who commands a boardroom and generates vast wealth. He projects power, authority, and the ultimate provider capability. The signals are clear, bold, and undeniable. And don't mistake this for superficial gold digging. That's a pathetic simplification used by men who can't compete. This is about securing the best possible future for our offspring, maximizing their chances of survival and success in a cutthroat world. It's about instinctively, almost unconsciously, assessing a man's genetic fitness and his ability to navigate the complex social hierarchy. Consider this scenario so you will never forget. A kind, sensitive artist, full of emotional depth and creative passion, the quintessential nice guy, versus a ruthless, powerful CEO who commands an empire and exudes an aura of unshakable confidence. Even if the artist is objectively more compassionate and understanding, the woman's primal instincts, that deep-seated hypergamous drive, will overwhelmingly favor the CEO. Why? Because he represents security, power, and the ability to provide at a level the artist simply cannot match. This isn't cruelty, it's ruthlessly pragmatic. It's the cold, hard calculus of survival playing out in the modern dating arena. It's the inescapable biological imperative at work. Let's dissect this 80-20 rule, this Pareto principle that's become the cold, hard scripture of the modern dating apocalypse. It's not just a theory, it's the law of the sexual jungle, amplified to a terrifying degree by the digital age. We're talking about a brutal reality where 80% of men, the average men, the nice guys, the ones who haven't yet woken up to this brutal truth, are pathetically scrambling for the attention of the bottom 20% of women. Meanwhile, the top 20% of men, the alphas, the high-value men, the ones who exude dominance and success, they're monopolizing the attention, the desire, the very essence of the other 80% of the female population. It's a feeding frenzy, a ruthless competition for the scraps of affection, and most men are losing badly. Think of dating apps like Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge. They're not tools for connection, they're digital coliseums, vast oceans where only the biggest fish survive. These platforms, along with the curated unreality of social media like Instagram, have created an illusion of limitless choice for women. They're bombarded constantly with images of these top-tier men's six-pack abs glistening, private jets in the background, exotic vacations, all signaling power, status, and unlimited resources. This isn't reality, of course. It's a highlight reel, a carefully constructed facade. But it becomes reality in the minds of women, fueled by their innate hypergamous drive. The average man, with his blurry bathroom selfie and his dad bod, is rendered invisible. He's drowned out, lost in a sea of digitally enhanced, hyper-masculine perfection. His messages go unanswered, his likes unnoticed. He's a ghost in the machine, a statistic in the brutal algorithm of online dating. Women, constantly exposed to this parade of ideal men, develop inflated expectations. They're not consciously cruel. They're simply responding to what they perceive as the available options. The idea of settling, of choosing a man who doesn't meet this impossibly high standard, becomes an absolute anathema to their very being. It's a betrayal of their biological imperative, a compromise on their genetic destiny. This, in turn, creates a desperate, almost primal scramble among men. It's a psychological Hunger Games. Men are pitted against each other in a relentless competition for female validation. They're forced to either level up, to transform themselves into these hyper-masculine ideals, or be relegated to the sidelines, the forgotten casualties of the sexual marketplace. Every like, every match, every fleeting moment of female attention becomes a precious commodity, a symbol of their worth, their desirability, their very manhood. The pressure is immense. The stakes are existential, and the consequences of failure are devastating to the male psyche. Are you starting to understand the gravity of the situation, the sheer brutality of this modern mating game? Are you willing to be one of the forgotten, or will you fight to become one of the elite? Let's talk about the carnage, the wasteland left behind in hypergamy's wake. We're talking about the 80%, the vast majority of men relegated to the shadows, the forgotten legions. These aren't just statistics, they're individual stories of crushing disappointment, a relentless barrage of rejection that chips away at the very core of a man's being. Imagine, for a moment, sending out hundreds of messages on dating apps, meticulously crafting each one, only to be met with silence, or worse, outright disdain. Picture pouring your heart out to someone, only to be told you're not what she's looking for, a euphemism for you're not good enough. This isn't occasional disappointment. It's a systemic emasculation. It's the feeling of being invisible, of your very existence being deemed unworthy. This breeds a deep-seated resentment, a simmering anger that festers and grows. Is it any wonder that some men, constantly bombarded with this message of inadequacy, begin to feel like they're living in a rigged game? A game where the rules are stacked against them from the start. And this is where the incel phenomenon, the involuntarily celibate, emerges. Now, I'm not here to condone every aspect of that subculture, but to understand it, to dissect it. It's a symptom, not the disease. It's the raw, unfiltered cry of men who feel utterly powerless, completely shut out of the sexual marketplace. They are the walking wounded of the sexual battlefield, scarred and embittered by constant rejection. They see the chads, the top-tier men, effortlessly attracting women, and they feel a burning injustice. They feel cheated, robbed of something they believe is their birthright. And what about so-called toxic masculinity? Let's be brutally honest. It's often a misguided response to this perceived powerlessness. It's a flailing attempt to reclaim some semblance of dominance, some shred of masculinity, in a world that seems hell-bent on stripping them of it. Think of the overly aggressive behavior, the desperate attempts to control women, the misogynistic outbursts. These are not expressions of inherent evil. They are the distorted reflections of a broken system. It's a desperate lashing out, a primal scream against a perceived injustice. The constant rejection, the feeling of being less than, fuels a rage that manifests in these destructive ways. It's a warped attempt to regain control, to feel like a man again, even if it's through negative and harmful means. This is precisely where the no more Mr. Nice Guy philosophy comes into play. It's a direct, visceral reaction to this feeling of being walked all over. These men have tried being polite, accommodating, and understanding, only to be discarded and ignored. They've seen the nice guys finish last, time and time again. So they decide to shed that skin, to embrace a harder, more ruthless persona. It's a rebellion against the perceived weakness of niceness, a conscious decision to adopt traditionally masculine traits, even to the point of aggression. It's about reclaiming power, even if that power is expressed in a way that society deems toxic. It's a desperate attempt to matter, to be noticed, to finally compete. To even begin to stand a chance in this brutal arena, a man needs steel will and iron discipline. He needs to understand that feelings of inadequacy are not personal failings, but the predictable outcome of a system designed to exclude him. He must cultivate a mindset of relentless self-improvement, not to become nicer, but to become stronger, more resilient, more dangerous. He must forge himself into a weapon, capable of withstanding the constant onslaught of the dating world. Without this, he's simply fodder for the hypergamous machine, destined to be another casualty in the ongoing war for female attention. He's finished before he even gets to the field of battle. He requires absolutely ruthless bravery. Forget self-improvement. That's for the beta male's content with mediocrity. We're talking about a complete and utter metamorphosis, a ruthless, scorched earth campaign to transform yourself into an undeniable force, an apex predator in the brutal dating landscape. This isn't about being a better you. It's about becoming a different you, a man women instinctively crave. Are you ready to shed your weak, pathetic skin and emerge as a god amongst men? First, embrace traditional masculinity with a vengeance, not the watered-down, sanitized version the mainstream media tries to shove down your throat, but the raw, primal power that built civilizations and conquered nations. This means relentless self-discipline. I'm not talking about going to the gym a couple of times a week and calling it a day. I'm talking about iron discipline, the kind that forces you to push yourself beyond your perceived limits, day in and day out, until your body is a weapon and your mind is a steel trap. Think of Spartan warriors, Roman centurions, Viking berserkers. These men weren't nice guys. They were unstoppable forces of nature. And that's what you need to become. Next, unwavering ambition. Forget about finding your passion or living your best life. Your passion is to dominate. Your best life is the one where you are in absolute control, where you have the resources, the status, and the sheer willpower to command respect and desire. This requires a laser-like focus on acquiring resources and status. We're talking about economic dominance. You must become a financial powerhouse, a man who can provide not just for himself, but for any woman he chooses to grace with his presence. Remember, hypergamy is a biological imperative. Women are wired to seek out providers. Become the ultimate provider, and you'll have your pick of the litter. Then, there's the physical aspect. You must become a physical specimen. I'm talking about sculpted muscles, a body that exudes power and virility. This isn't about vanity. It's about signaling your genetic superiority. Women are instinctively drawn to men who look like they can protect them, provide for them, and father strong offspring. Hit the gym with the ferocity of a starving lion hunting its prey. Every rep, every drop of sweat is an investment in your future, in your dominance. Imagine yourself as a gladiator, stepping into the arena, ready to conquer. That's the mindset you need. Social skills. Forget about being charming. You need to master the game, the subtle art of manipulation, influence, and control. Study pickup artistry, not to become a sleazy manipulator, but to understand the underlying dynamics of female attraction. Learn how to project confidence, even when you're feeling insecure. Learn how to read body language, how to escalate interactions, how to create a sense of mystery and intrigue. This isn't about tricking women. It's about understanding their psychology and playing to their primal instincts. Remember, it's a jungle out there. You must understand the moves if you will to survive. Forget about abundance mentality as some fluffy, new age concept. You achieve it by actively cultivating multiple options. Never, ever put all your eggs in one basket. This isn't about being a player. It's about understanding your own worth and refusing to settle for anything less than you deserve. Reject any sense of neediness. Neediness is a repellent. It screams weakness and desperation. Instead, project an aura of aloofness, of unyielding self-sufficiency. Let women compete for your attention, not the other way around. And finally, we're talking about assertiveness training, bordering on aggression training. This isn't about becoming a violent thug. It's about learning how to stand your ground, how to project power, how to be a fearless warrior in the social and sexual arena. Learn to confront challenges head on, to never back down from a fight, to defend your boundaries with unwavering resolve. This is where the no more Mr. Nice Guy philosophy comes into play. The world doesn't reward weakness. It rewards strength, courage, and the willingness to fight for what you want. Are you willing to become a ruthless winner, or will you remain a pathetic loser? What do you say? The ultimate goal, to become part of the 20%, the apex predators of the dating world. The men who command respect, who attract the most desirable women, who live life on their own terms. The men who are truly unstoppable. This isn't a pipe dream, it's an achievable reality, but it requires a complete and total commitment to transforming yourself into the ultimate alpha male. It requires blood, sweat, and tears. It requires you to embrace your inner warrior and unleash the beast within. Are you ready to answer the call? Listen to me and listen closely. This isn't some feel-good pep talk. This is a declaration of war. The dating market, as it stands today, is not a playground, it's a battlefield. A brutal, unforgiving arena where the laws of hypergamy reign supreme. It's a Hunger Games scenario playing out in real time, and you, my friend, are either a tribute fighting for survival or a spectator destined for oblivion. Are you going to be a victor or a victim? Choose, and choose now. There is absolutely no room for weakness, no space for complacency, no time for self-pity. The sweet whispers of being yourself are the siren song leading you to the rocks of rejection and despair. The nice guy is a relic of a bygone era, a museum piece gathering dust, a sacrifice to the insatiable god of hypergamy. Man up isn't some outdated click, it's a primal scream, a call to arms. Toughen up isn't advice, it's a command. You must embrace the ruthless, unwavering climb to the top, clawing your way up the social hierarchy, leaving the weak and the hesitant trampled underfoot. This isn't about being nice, it's about becoming powerful. It's about forging yourself into an undeniable force, a man of steel will and iron discipline. It's about demanding what you want and taking it. It requires a complete and utter rejection of the whiny, pathetic victim mentality. The alternative is to be crushed, utterly and completely, under the weight of hypergamy's relentless, unyielding pressure. To become another nameless, faceless statistic, lost in the vast ocean of the 80%. Imagine it, the 80%, the masses, the forgotten. They are destined to remain forever in the shadows, lurking on the fringes, their eyes burning with a desperate, unfulfilled yearning. They will watch, consumed by envy and resentment, as the 20%, the elite, the conquerors, feast on the spoils of victory. The women, the resources, the status, the respect, all of it will be theirs. And you'll be left with the scraps, the leftovers, the bitter taste of regret. Is that what you want? To be a ghost, haunting the edges of a life you were too weak to claim? To spend your days watching others live the life you should be living? No. 1,000 times no. You must awaken the sleeping giant within you. You must cultivate a burning, all-consuming desire to join the elite, to become one of the unstoppable few who dictate the terms, who command attention, who win. The time for hesitation is over. The time for action is now. Rise or be forever fallen.